It's pretty good.
What is this? Is this the Beatles? Hello, and welcome to In the Fold. I'm
Echo.
and
I'm
Ryan.
And
Today
we
are
reviewing
The
Jerk.
In the history of motion pictures, only a select few performers have become immortalized by the roles they have portrayed. Consider the Vamp, the Champ, the Tramp, and now the most perfect casting of all, Steve Martin, the Jerk.
It was never easy for me. I was born a poor black child.
The Jerk is a classic comedy from the 1970s starring Steve Martin and directed by Carl Reiner. It is a classic American rags-to-riches tale, except that our protagonist, Navin Johnson, is a complete fucking moron. So let's talk about our relationship to this movie.
Sure.
You talk about your relationship with this movie.
So this movie for me, you know, it's not the kind of movie that you often hear like a filmmaker or an aspiring filmmaker saying really motivated them to get into film. But for me, it kind of was. I remember seeing The Jerk when I was in like 7th or 8th grade for the first time. And it was just this super silly, really funny movie. And I was like, you can do that with movies? You can just do this nonsense and just make people laugh and not worry about a plot. And I guess in 8th grade, that was like the coolest thing ever. And I just thought it was hilarious, and I still think it's hilarious.
I would have to agree. I had a similar relationship. It was one of the first, I think, comedy films that I had been introduced to by my parents, you know, and I had a similar reaction. I was just kind of so stunned by how much nonsense that you'd be allowed to get away with. It is a fairly innocent film. There's not a lot of sex or violence or anything. There's some taboo topics, but it is one of those films like I guess like Airplane. You know, it's a comedy that your family introduces you to pretty early.
Movies, yeah.
You know, let's go into the context a little bit. It's the late '70s. Steve Martin at this point was a pretty popular stand-up comedian. He was on Saturday Night Live a lot without really being a featured player, but his presence was so prominent on the show that it's so easy to associate him with it. And such a unique comic voice, like we said before, this unrepentant silliness.
We are two wild and crazy guys.
At this point, this is his first feature film,
I think it was his first feature film.
or at least his first starring role.
If not, someone will correct us.
The movie began, I was a stand-up comedian at the time, and I knew pretty soon it was going to be over for me. And I thought, maybe I could get into movies.
But I think a lot of his like stand-up comedy shows in this movie, because the comedy's so similar.
Yeah.
Like his stand-up at the time, what I love about his stand-up is that it's just ridiculous, and he makes mistakes, and he blunders his way through his own jokes, and he does that in this movie too. Like you would never say he's a good actor in the movie, but it works.
And Steve Martin's other work with Carl Reiner is very similar. If you like this movie, you'll like The Man with Two Brains, which is kind of like a send-up of Frankenstein horror. I mean, I guess...
Again, though, without directly like satirizing anything.
No.
It's not like it's Young Frankenstein and it's a spoof of Frankenstein.
Right.
It's just a silly movie set in a similar universe.
Yeah, it's just exactly. It's the same setting, but just with his unique silliness. There's a movie called All of Me where he gets possessed by Lily Tomlin, and it's a very physical role. I recommend it a lot. So that's just some of his other stuff. Let's get into the plot a little.
So The Jerk doesn't have a huge plot, but it is kind of like you're taking one person and you're looking at them from, you know, their childhood to growing up, kind of. and you're seeing these defining moments of their life and just kind of seeing how these moments make them, into the person you see at the beginning of the movie.
When we first meet Steve Martin, he's sitting in an alley in L.A. and he explains to us that he was born a poor black child, and then we kind of flash back to his youth as a poor black child. He's really just a 40, maybe 60-year-old white man living with a black family in rural Mississippi. On the day of his birthday, was it his 20th birthday?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's supposed to be his 20th birthday. He discovers that he's white.
You mean I'm gonna stay this color?
And it sends him into an existential crisis that sends him out on the road.
His first job that he ends up getting in his new life in St. Louis after hitchhiking there is at a gas station for Jackie Mason, and he thinks he's hit it big time when he sees his name in the phone book.
I'm in print! Things are going to start happening to me now.
And that was a pretty defining moment for him.
Yeah, I think one of the big gags of this movie is how Steve Martin wildly misinterprets all these mundane aspects of life and adulthood as these huge milestones. He finds his name in the phone book.
That's his first apartment, which is just a back room
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
thinks is this extravagant place.
He goes through all these like quintessentially American milestones, including being the target of an assassination attempt. And this to me is something that is like quintessentially 70s. You know what I mean? It's not like there's elements of this movie that harken to just these old school, old timey like the 70s American aesthetic. The carnival, the hitchhiking, and being the target of a serial murderer.
Serial killer, yeah.
Yeah, because the 70s was a big time for that. You had fucking Son of Sam, Manson, Night Stalker.
These scans are defective!
The Zodiac.
Yeah.
So it only made sense that Steve Martin, this innocent naif, would become the completely random target. It's just
Of a
literally his
serial
name's
killer.
picked out of the phone book that he's so proud of.
Sounds like a typical...
So he goes to this carnival, and for the first time he kind of discovers dishonesty, and he also discovers sex. And his parents had told him that his penis was his special purpose, and he meets a very grody, grungy carnival stunt woman, Patty, who is amazing.
Yeah, I love her.
Give me a bite of that corn dog.
What about germs?
Put a rubber on it.
And she kind of forces herself on him in a gruff manner,
Yeah.
but he likes it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's
Gets a little rapey, almost.
I'd say it's the only real moment where my
Jelon.
postmodern, politically correct sensibilities got triggered.
Yeah.
It's just like, she might be raping him right now. But it's okay, because it's played for laughs.
Sure, it's played for laughs, but I know what you mean, because he's so innocent, it feels like a statutory rape kind of situation.
Yeah, but he's also 60. At the same time, he meets somebody more similar to his personality, Bernadette Peters.
Bernadette Peters, who's amazing in that.
Yeah, she is. Just angelic.
Yeah, angelic and also so silly.
So smooth and flexible.
I took after my mother's side of the family.
Like, I love when movies just, especially in that era, giving a female role just as much silly stuff
Yeah.
as the male role was nice. Bernadette Peters is this cosmetologist, and she meets Steve Martin, and they fall in love, I guess? Yeah, they sing a song together on a beach. But the whole time you're watching them together, you feel like they're both kind of new to love in general. And that they don't quite know what they're doing, which makes it very cute and very fun. Quite a few musical numbers that you could tell were written by Steve Martin,
Particularly that one.
particularly that one and the Thermos song.
Yes.
One of my favorite parts of the movie is Steve Martin laying in a bathtub, not knowing that Bernadette Peters is about to leave him, singing a song I'm picking out a thermos for you. Not an ordinary thermos. I forget the rest. But anyway.
So Steve Martin accidentally invents no-slip eyeglasses. And it's this extraordinarily arbitrary plot point in which he suddenly becomes a multimillionaire overnight.
Yeah. Much later in the movie, too. Comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he's a millionaire. And has no idea how to be a millionaire.
Actually, I kind of like that theme. It runs through the course of the movie where he is constantly trying on all these personalities. You know, he thinks that he's poor and black, you know, to start with, and then he thinks that he's made it when he becomes a gas station attendant. He thinks that he understands what love is when he meets Patty, and then becomes this, or alleges to become this millionaire.
But he doesn't quite get it. Like, one of my favorite moments of that is when they're in the restaurant and he goes to the waiter like, get rid of this old wine. Get us the freshest bottle you have. You know what?
Waiter! There are snails on her plate. Now get them out of here before she sees them. Look away. Just look away and keep your eyes that way.
So after he becomes a millionaire, it turns out that the eyeglasses that he invented actually make you cockeyed. So they have a director cameo where Carl Reiner is staring at a camera doing a press announcement about how he's cockeyed.
When Optograb came out, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I bought a pair. And this is the result.
And it sends Steve Martin plummeting into a pit of despair, and he has to write 900,000 checks for $1.09 to all the people suing him. And he loses all his money, and Bernadette Peters is wondering what happened to the man she fell in love with, and he just has to leave, and that's what leads him to become the bum that you see in the beginning of the film. It all ties in nicely together.
Yeah.
So I think that the way that the script was written, to me, seems like it was just kind of, what gags do I have that are really funny that we can put this one character in, you know? It was just like, where can we stick this dumbass? And just build around goofs.
Yeah.
And it's just a connection of goofs, which, as a pitch, you would say doesn't sound like a very good movie, but it also never slows down, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons the script works, is because it's just plastered with goofs wall to wall, and you don't get tired of it.
Largely, the screenplay was developed by Michael Elias and Carl Gottlieb and myself, and we just kept working on it and working on it. Our goal was to have a laugh on every page.
So let's talk about the director a little bit. Carl Reiner, television director, writer, actor, worked with Mel Brooks.
Yep.
Directed a bunch of movies for Steve Martin.
Directed Dick Van Dyke Show, some other TV shows from the 50s and 60s, I guess, right?
Yeah, these kind of, he is this very seasoned comedic performer and director.
And he was part of the duo that birthed Rob Reiner.
With Mel Brooks?
No, with his wife, I assume.
Oh, okay.
That's the stupid joke.
This really isn't the time or place for stupid jokes. I think another interesting thing about watching this movie today is that at this point it's now, I guess, close to 40 years old, and comedy is one of those genres that particularly has a tough time aging well. And would you say it held up?
I think it held up. And I don't think it was just nostalgia either, because there's some movies that I loved as a kid that I've rewatched and I just think are like shitty now. Like, I feel bad saying it, but like, I rewatched Wayne's World and I was just like, I don't think this holds up.
No?
But I used to love that movie.
One of the striking things about it is that, you know, it's not a satire really. It's just this unrepentantly silly comedy. You know, it's just the there's something that's so transgressive about the silliness of it. You know what I mean?
And I wanted to say it's different from a lot of other silly movies. You know, there's this day and age we have a lot of Judd Apatow movies that that kind of comedy where it's still grounded to some degree, and then you have your kind of really silly movies like Scary Movie and all those other satire movies, but those rely so heavily on like topical gags and humor that's based on pop culture and that kind of stuff, and that stuff gets old really quick.
Yeah.
But you can watch The Jerk and still laugh at an idiot not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's ever not going to be funny.
Yeah.
Maybe the pacing or the way it's shot will seem old to younger generations, but I think the humor stands up, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a certain timelessness to it, and there is something kind of like so quintessentially American about it. And it's not even just that it tells this classic, rags to riches story. I love that it involves Carnival. It involves disco rooms, shitty late 70s fashion. There's just something that so captures a time and place. Let me ask you something. Would you recommend this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would recommend it to everyone. I think everyone should watch this movie, and especially I feel like it's just a good movie to show kids.
Yeah.
Because it's so lighthearted and fun, and I don't think it's comedy that you see coming out very often anymore, ever. Like nowadays, not that there's anything wrong with it directly, but I kind of am getting tired of the talking head comedies where it's, people in a room just talking and it's funny, or like the wacky,
You're tired of people talking and
yeah,
and
I'm
being
tired
funny.
of people walking, just talking in rooms, just very flat comedies. I'm tired of comedies where it's like middle-aged people getting into hijinks that strengthen their marriage. I feel like that's a lot of movies these days. Am I wrong?
The combination of Steve Martin and Carl Reiner produces such a unique comic sensibility that I think it transcends the ages. And it's something that I would show not just to our shitty film friends, but to general audiences as well. You do kind of have to go into it with knowing that a 40-year-old comedy, the timing is different, the pacing is different, the cultural sensibilities are different, but I still think it holds up.
Yeah.
See that? Be somebody.
Steve Martin, The Jerk.
Yellow.
The Jerk.
That's right.
Steve Martin, can you tell the difference?
I am not a bum. I'm a jerk.
Well,
back to
folding.
Back to the grind.
I'm picking out a thermos for you.
Oh yeah, we should learn.
Thermos.
We should learn the song. Well, you know the song. I don't know the
That's
song.
all I know of it.
Oh. What is it? Here, sing it to me.
I'm picking out a thermos for you. Not an ordinary thermos. It's true.
I'm picking out a thermos for you.
It's got lots and lots of something.
No, we'll just do the two lines over and over again, right?
I'm
Picking out a thermos for you.
Not
an ordinary thermos, it's true. I'm picking out a
thermos for you.
Hi, Mike here from Rabbit Hole TV, here with our mascot Pumpkin. Say hello, Pumpkin. Thanks for watching In the Fold. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. And if you really like what you saw, you can check out our Patreon, where we have behind the scenes photos and videos and other cool stuff if you want to get more involved with the show. Say hi, Pumpkin.